Yeah, go.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and a very good evening to all the new and old nurtr users joining from different parts of the world. Thank you for being with us today. I am woman Grandmaster Alexandra Dimitrievich from Serbia, and I would be moderating today's session. We welcome Grandmaster Boris nurtr onto the nurtr platform once again with his camp Pawn Moves. For those new to the platform, let us learn something about the life and chess journey of Grandmaster Boris nurtr. Boris became Grandmaster in 1997 at the age of 21. He has won World Under-12 Championship, the Israeli Chess Championships twice, and participated in Chess Olympiads 6 times. He has also trained with some of the best players in the world like Grandmaster Rajabov, Grandmaster Kramnik, Grandmaster Caruana, Wesley So, Boris Gelfand, and many more. Boris is universally recognized as one of the foremost opening theoreticians of the modern era. He is the world leading expert on D4 and has authored some of the classics. Please use the chat box for answering, use question and answer box to ask questions, and also avoid spamming the chat and avoid repeating the questions. As mentioned in our note placed on the website, we are adding functionality and content. Please bear with us. You will be able to enjoy the chess content from the masters as before very soon. And also, our next camp will be Bishop pair in endgames on 3rd April this year with Grandmaster Davor Rogic. Okay, Boris, how are you?
Hello, Alexander. I'm doing great. Thanks for introduction. Yeah, we are ready to go.
Yes, please start.
Hello, guys. Welcome to our next month of lectures. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Mostly good afternoon for you, I guess. Guys, I hope you are doing well. That's already April. So today's lecture, right? We will talk about pawn moves. So what I want to talk about, guys, like it's might be confusing, like a little bit title, right? But well, of course, like we know pawns, they're moving. If you move the pawn till the end, you promote and stuff like this. I want to talk about a little bit two other things. Like number one, it's when, guys, when you move the pawn, how you should pay attention to potentially squares or maybe pawns that can be targeted, right? So like whenever you move the pawn, there are also like you're losing control over some squares. In many cases, it's like not important, but in some cases, it might become like really problematic, right? So what exactly you need to evaluate, what should be your consideration? I noticed also the players, like I see from my students that I have, let's say, range like until 2300, right? So, but mostly, let's say if we take the level until like 2100, in many cases, they like kind of like a little bit careless. They do not pay attention too much to these factors. And in many cases, they pay the price, right? In many cases, they pay the price, they create weakness, weak square, weak pawn, and so on, right? Now, and another factor that I actually like, really like this topic, when moving the pawn or exchanging the pawn, like exchanging the pawns, and this potentially creates pawn structure, new pawn structure, and how you need to assess this pawn structure, how you need to evaluate this pawn structure. So the new pawn structure in many cases has new features, how you need to adjust, how you choose, and so on. So these two main components, right? Now, guys, I want a little bit, like usually I was showing just one game. Today I decided, like, you know, I'll show you a couple of examples. So first of all, I wanted to start with the topic of like with the first part of this, like you move the pawn, you weaken the squares. Many cases, it's kind of like, it's not bad. Like, I mean, opponent cannot take advantage, or it's not a big deal and stuff like this. But there are cases where like it's really might be really problematic for you. It might hurt you and so on. And your opponent can take advantage of this. Okay, so like really one quick example. So this is the game. This is the game actually by Viktor Korchnoi, like played many years ago against Gata Kamsky. There were players like that, you know, Gata Kamsky. I don't know, like guys, if you're familiar with this, like new generation, Gata Kamsky. I remember these matches against Vishwanathan Anand. Like they played two candidates for two different systems. Like you know, it was fun. Like actually, like each one match. And but how many years ago? It's like it's hard to say. 30 years ago, something like that. Maybe 25, something like that. Okay, guys, so the opening doesn't matter. It's like King's Indian, you know, normal. And I mean, not much to say about the pawn moves. Like, yeah, so here, let's say C5. That's the pawn structure. That's the choice of pawn structure. That's Benoni pawn structure out of King's Indian, right? So kind of like normal stuff. Normal stuff is happening here, guys. And you know, a very original setup, like knight to e2. There are reasons. I mean, we don't really discuss now opening. It's there are like, I can talk a lot about this opening variation that I used to play when I was a teenager, but that's not the point. So it just kind of like goes normal play. Yeah, I mean, a little bit unusual that black is so easily allowed to have knight on a5, right? So bishop c2 was played, a6, idea b5, right? a4. So all this not so important, like h6, solving the problem of the pin, right? Kicking the bishop, like bishop has to stay on this diagonal, bishop h4 not so good. Rook b8, and white play queen c1. Queen c1, attacking the pawn. So this is what happened. And there are a couple of opportunities to defend this pawn, right? Guys, what do you think? Like you have a choice. Basically, I can say king h7, g5, h5. What you would choose? So far, I got only two answers. So yeah, okay. For some reason, you are not active, but maybe the question is not very interesting. So yeah, it's a clear priority, guys, towards king h7. Oh, Julam, like you you came with h5. So there is like four guys. Oh, okay, g5 is coming. Yeah, so okay, so interested. If you push the pawn, you weaken the squares, of course, right? But it doesn't mean we never push the pawns, right? Like, so it's always evaluation. So guys, I felt like I scared you so much with my like introduction that, of course, like king h7, but I see there are some brave guys like playing g5, h5. On the other hand, right, like you king h7, it's like you do not achieve anything, right? Stuff like this. Now some players claim that, okay, g5, it's like typical Benoni move. Yeah, and it's true. And guys, there are pros and cons, right? Like you play g5, now you kind of prevent f4. That's the main idea. Also, like in many cases, g6 square available for the knight, right? But I think like in this specific case, I don't think black is well prepared. I'm afraid after f4, it will be very dangerous. With all like with potentially a lot of pieces, it should be more safe for white, like maybe more pieces on the king side. I don't know, right? It's like h4, well, h4 again, like h4, guys, that's what I'm saying. Pawn moves. I mean, immediately, oh, what about g4 square? And indeed, it's like g4, right? Like you allow knight g4, this knight, and then I can get the bishop. I'm not losing material, right? Like it's not that with black, I mean, right? Like we are not winning the pawn. So very important, guys. So always pay attention, just like before you decided to play, like talk to yourself. Okay, what about squares? Like f4, Well, there are some weaknesses, like after f4 as well, right? Like maybe bishop on f3 vulnerable, but I don't see how he can take advantage of this, right? How he can take advantage. And I think it's like will be very dangerous, right? If he takes, we take bishop f4, h6 is hanging, the knight is coming. I think it's very dangerous, like f-file. Okay, so we discussed this move. I think it would be premature to play g5 now in this position. So there was one brave guy, Julam, who said h5, actually very thematic move in this type of positions, like you know, King's Indian positions, guys. But there is a problem. Actually, h5 played by Gata Kamsky, so it's not a bad move. It's not a bad move, right? It's something that like one of the best players in the world consider. Now, what happens with h5, guys? What do you think? So there is one suggestion, f4. Okay, f4, knight c4, right? Or something like f4 could have been played even before, right? Srinivas, permanent weakness. Yeah, guys, bishop g5 is the problem. Bishop g5 is the problem. And what I want to say, it's not permanent weakness, no. Because potentially, like later on, you can play f6, but number one, you don't want to play f6. Number two, there is a pin right now, right? That's the issue. That's the issue. So I know, Julam, you wanted to play queen b6. Well, first of all, with queen b6, I mean, I have a5, you will go to c7. But I think like the bigger issue here, the bigger issue, guys, who can tell me what might be the idea in this type of position? I don't know exactly. I haven't checked this with computer or something, but I'm pretty sure it will be powerful. What is like the strong idea in this position for white potentially? Yes, f4. First of all, f4. I don't know. Maybe I insert this. I kick your queen to c7, right? Because going here like too risky. Yeah, like too risky, right? So you have to go to c7, right? And then maybe f4. Okay, maybe f4, and let's say I play knight d7. Oh, Srinivas, very good, guys. There is this idea, like, to be honest, correct, absolutely, 100%. But fantastic answer, Srinivas. E5, guys, e5 is the main break, right? Like, it's the major idea. It's a break, which is like white should strive for, but what is happening? And guys, those who think about f5, maybe it's working, but it's more double-edged, right? Maybe in this specific situation, maybe it's working, but e5 square potentially, right? So it's kind of like double-edged. If we are not mating, we might be worse. Therefore, like Srinivas mentioned, like e5, d5, and f5. This is very thematic. I don't know how many games I had like, with this idea. I don't know how many games I have. Very, very dangerous. Especially, guys, now when there is this move, like with a pawn on h7 would be a little bit different story, right? But now it's I'm pretty sure it's crushing initiative for white. Pretty sure, no doubts about this. So, guys, that's the point, right? So you play h5, you have to evaluate what happens. Look, it's not like I can say, oh well, that's bishop g5, that's why cannot be played, right? If let's say the idea how Julian thought, like I move the queen and then I play knight h7 with the tempo, then it's fine. Then it's fine. It might be justified, but I think it's too slow, right? In this specific position. So what happened in the game? In the game, he played c4. This is, I would say, also thematic Benoni move, right? I mean, usually played with the knight on d7, with the idea to play knight c5, but also here, like, you know, after all, there is a majority on the queen side. Now, can you, guys, can you discover what might be the problem here? So anything concrete? Lakshmi, anything concrete? Okay, guys, a few more, like, would like to mention the answer here. Yeah, okay, everyone noticed already, guys. Everyone noticed, like, you know the topic. By the way, Korchnoi, who played this game, he didn't play the best move. He played something else. He played something else. He waited for b5, then he played. But guys, this move is very powerful here, and that's advantage. It's just like, no, Julian, there is knight d4, right? Knight d4. Now, when you play a5, I wanted to make this point. Yes, that's thematic as well, but I mean, I can get this steal, and there is some counterplay after all, like typical Benoni counterplay. Of course, not perfect for black, right? Would love not to have these weaknesses, but it's kind of like okay. Okay, guys. So, but I mean, everyone suggested, so that's a fantastic move because we stop b5 and we get knight to d4. So it's awesome, right? And we keep in mind f4 and all the ideas. And that's a very clear advantage, guys. That's a very clear advantage. And basically, that's the start. So of what I wanted to tell you, like, you see, even very strong grandmasters, like when they play, I mean, sometimes they misevaluate, right? So that was kind of like bad play, to be honest, from white, because the position is unclear. If black plays, I actually, how I got to this, I found a very nice game with king h7, which I showed to my students. And then when I analyzed this position, I suddenly, you know, found other games. So I clicked the opening. I want to see what happens normally. And oh, wow, strong players play. And like h5, crazy. What about bishop g5, c4, knight d4, you know? Okay, guys. So, okay, we have this position. Yeah, so basically that's what I wanted to say. Now, very, very interesting game. I wanted to show problem. It's like jump, like, guys, let me kind of like set up again the board. 1 second, really quick. I'm sorry. So one of my students who is like very, very close to like national master in US. So it's usually, I would say, like for FIDE international rating, it's like 2150 level, 2150, maybe a little bit less. It's local rating, American rating 2200. He's very, very close. So he's playing the game. It was actually like, you know, February term. He's playing the game in one of the local tournaments. He plays e4, c6. D4, D5, Caro-Kann, right? So it just plays normal line, like, you know, classical line. And suddenly he faces knight D7. It was very funny. He's like, I mean, I don't know this move. You know, guys, can you imagine like knight D7? Do you have any idea what's the name of this variation? Knight D7? Or who was the player who played this very often? Let's put it this way. Yeah, well, Srinivas, this is Karpov. Some people, like, I don't know if there is official name Karpov, but Karpov played a bunch of games here. But now it's, guys, it's a third choice. There is bishop f5 main line. Now a lot of people play knight f6, right? Knight f6. Guys, by the way, we're talking about pawn structure. We're talking about pawn structure. Knight f6. So like you play knight f6, you have to be ready for this pawn structure, right? Guys, it's really remarkable how I remember how it was developing. Like when, let's say, 10 years ago, I was showing this line to my students. I was like, okay, so if somebody plays knight f6, gf6 will be the move, probably some interesting pawn structure. So how to handle this pawn structure? I remember I was showing how white gets advantage. It's pretty dubious line. And then I said, okay, this move is not serious. This move is not serious 10 years ago, right? Because there is just no compensation for these double pawns. And then you just accurately develop, you put c3, bishop d3, knight e2, like this. And then you like, you know, guys, what's the strategy? Trade pieces, create pass pawn D, pawn endgame is winning, stuff like that. I thought it's not serious. Guys, this is nowadays super fashionable line, which considered to be like double edge, Magnus plate, unbelievable. Unbelievable, because like everyone people started to develop these with computers, and now it's very, very playable line, and probably like even more popular than bishop f5. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yeah, so he knew knight f6, he knew bishop f5, 97, he's like, oh, well, I don't know what to do here. Guys, probably the best line here to go is knight g5. There is a famous, like, you know, Kasparov laws to d blue, right? Like this line. So that's considered to be the main move. I mean, okay, he's playing knight f3. I mean, I always tell my students, you face some surprise, like just develop pieces, castle, especially you play white, there shouldn't be any problems, right? So he played knight f3, like knight f6, decided to go knight g3. That's okay, you know, that's okay. So now his opponent played c5. So there is this interesting move. Usually e6 first, and then c5. But I mean, that's more classical. Probably, I'm not sure exactly what's the reason, but I guess there are some nuances why you play c5. Now he took dc5 and e6, right? So guys, and now it's interesting situation. Now it's interesting situation. We actually have choices. We can choose 3 different pawn structures, right? So already one pawn structure mentioned by Srinivas, he said c6 is possible. Now, so first of all, you can just give up the pawn. That's obvious, right? Secondly, c6 is possible. What is c6? It's actually very thematic. There are like many opening lines where we do this. So we give up the pawn, but kind of like we damage the pawn structure in some sense. So in terms of like islands, potentially, if it's endgame, the pawns might be weak. But guys, this is not so clear, because it's, you know, there are pros and cons for black, right? It's like maybe in long run, it's weakness. On the other hand, it could be very active play, like c5. There could be bishop b7. There could be sometimes file. It's actually not a bad position here. It's a theory. There are games, and so it's pretty okay for black. It's not like the way to go for advantage. Now, actually, what I thought about pawn structure, I thought to go for this. I like this a little bit more. So this is a classical move before. You can easily predict that black will respond with a5, right? Attacking our pawn structure, c3. And then already black has a choice here, I think. No, I'm not sure there is a choice, actually. Take and b6. He has to take, because immediate b6 is not working, right? This. Now, again, you have choices, right? You have choices. But you better choose here something like that, because otherwise it might be a problem here, right? If you take on b6 or you allow like trade, actually this kind of a pawn is rather weakness. It's not a pass pawn. So let's say you play this pawn structure. Looks fantastic, right? Looks optically fantastic. I don't think it's that clear. Of course, endgame is winning, but before endgame there is a middle game, and he will have a very active position, bishop b7 and queen c7, bishop d6. So there are some games. I still think probably white best bet for advantage here, this type of pawn structure. But I mean, it's not very clear, right? So guys, let's go back. So he just played like c3, guys. He just played c3, allowed to take, played, yes, and played before. He decided to take a tempo. Guys, what do you think about this move? Is it like okay, this move? What do you think? Srinivas, why not good? Weakening white bishop. This I don't understand. I don't know what is weakening bishop. I'm not familiar with this term. It's first of all, it's not GM players. It's a 2100 level players. Okay, Julian, I see you answer. Bishop e7 and a5. Oh, that's a fantastic answer. One second. Who answered this? Oh, Srinivas. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Explain already all the ideas. Guys, hard to believe, but that's a massive positional mistake. Massive positional mistake. Why? Basically, guys, there is a good explanation. I can quote Srinivas. C3 will be weakness in long run, and if you play a3 and c4, then a5 will come, and we will have, well, I wouldn't say development issues, it's rather squares, right? Guys, he played this move, and he, well, I would say like it was not the reason that he lost the game. Later on, he came back, but what happened? Now you play bishop e7, right? So what do you have? You have c3 backward, but I mean, of course, he knew about this, right? He said like, well, I'm slowly preparing c4 now, no problem, right? The problem is like a5 coming. So he played this move. He's like, he was actually like to play bishop d3, or maybe I just insert before, you know, careless, right? He's like, no difference. Actually, he had to evaluate this more in details, right? So bishop d3 he played, and his opponent like a5. Fantastic move, not waiting for it. So now you can play b5, right? You can play b5, but in this case, your majority will be neutralized here fully, and there is c5 square, right? There is c5 square, so I can play knight c5. Basically, it's like you don't have extra pawn at all, because c5 will be a blockade for the rest of the game. So you don't have any majority, and it's a massive, massive concession, right? Massive problem. Now we got this pawn structure. We're like, oh, well, you know, sometimes we start advancing, we can create pass pawn, and this not happening, right? Guys, can you imagine this? Like just one inaccurate move. a5, fantastic. He played bishop d2, so he doesn't want b5. He doesn't want b5 because, yeah, of course, knight c5 and so on, right? So he's like, okay, let me keep it. Let me play a3. Let me play a3 and then c4, and then I fix it, right? Black to move. What happens? Srinivas, great answer. Great answer. As always. Knight d5. Knight d5. I'll play a3. Lakshmi, just a3. So it's like I'm alive. I'm alive. There is this fantastic move. There is this fantastic move. Small tactical trick. What Black achieves, of course, as correctly mentioned by Srinivas, bc5, queen d3, not acceptable, not acceptable. But by the way, I found this, guys, bishop h7, the best move, absolutely the best for white. Funny move, no? Well, at least, you know, like I take on c5 and then you cannot castle, like if you take with rook. Then I think Black can play this, and that's like super powerful compensation, slightly better for Black. Slightly better for Black. But you know, like Black is doing great, right? Now he played bishop b5, bishop d7, knight d7. Now why it was a good trade? Who can explain why it was a good trade for Black? Correct, Srinivas. Light square bishops, trade of light square bishop, definitely favorable for Black. You don't need to be a grandmaster to understand that it's good to trade bishop c8 for bishop d3 without losing the tempo even, right? What is white squares? Lakshmi, what is white squares are we? b5, c4. Well, b5, I don't know, but c4, yes. Guys, c4, yes. Now consequences of playing b4. Correct. Now he played a3, castle. Now here's c4, like there was a move c4, but there is something that this pawn structure can be attacked. I think like take rook a1. So it's still pretty bad. So there was some variation, but guys, he like, let's say he played queen c7 right away, right? Like doesn't matter. So basically this. Now, so not only when you played, there is potentially c3 was weak, but also the square c4 you played before, already c4 cannot be covered. This should be taken into consideration. You have bishop on d3, fine, it's not a problem. But like when it's traded, right? So you have to make sure it's not traded in the nearest future, right? So this is what happened. And that's clear positional advantage for black. He suffered throughout the game, like came back actually at some point, but lost. But that's a disastrous opening, right? It's kind of like clear positional advantage for black out of the opening, right? Like -1 something evaluation, right? According to the computer. Not good. And just like, you know, he didn't know the opening, just one careless move before, and that's it, you know, guys. That's it. So you understand. Hopefully you got this idea. Now I wanted to talk, guys, about the pawn structure. So this is another game by the same guy. So I want to start from the beginning. Now we will talk about pawn structure transformation, right? How we choose, what we choose, and so on. So it's the same player playing again, like more or less his level, maybe even lower. You know, just normal opening. I quickly go like through the stuff, like normal stuff. Now his opponent plays strange, probably not very familiar, like c5. Fantastic move, right? I mean, I'm always, guys, by the way, this is my concept. Like if you play black, this type of structures, like d5 pawn, right? And white is not playing c4, we play c5. Very simple. I had the book d4 sideline, so like every possible line where white is not playing c4, and actually that was the topic of this book. I mean, always c5, right? So take space, right? Simple idea. We want knight c6. We don't want to put knight on c6 right now. We play this. So he played c3, knight c6, and knight g2. Guys, black to move. What you would do? There are definitely a bunch of good moves, like a lot of choice and so on. What to do? How to play. Julan, choose one. Okay. So yeah, guys, I mean, a lot of ideas here, starting from capturing on d4, queen b6, probably the most popular move, minority attack, a6, b5, guys, like, I don't like this idea. It's like, look, I'm gonna play e4. You don't have time here for minority attack. I mean, I played 92 rook e1. I prepared a4 in general, right? So like, I mean, I think it will be very slow. Srinivas came up with knight e4, very original move. You know, I mean, I am not so sure about this pawn structure. For instance, I would be worried about stuff like this. I understand if knight d2 f5, but what if I go here? I don't think it's a great pawn structure transformation for black. I'm not saying e4 pawn is bad. This I know. f5 will come, everything is fine, right? But 95, so like that you cannot take because you're gonna lose e4. Like you have to play f5. I take on c6. I mean, I think it's too complicated, right, guys? Now, he played in the game queen b6, inaccuracy, slight inaccuracy. Guys, the best move in this position, surprisingly, cd4. And now I wanted, guys, I wanted to tell you the following, like it's very, very interesting. So cd4, cd4, to insert cd4, cd4, and then queen b6. Why? We will discuss. Number one, guys, I have this rule, and all my students, they know. When they trade like that, so we take on d4. So basically what happens? We remove c5, he removes c3, right? So it's trading more central pawn on c5 for less central c3. So I always say, you know, the default settings, what doesn't mean default settings? Like from the beginning, from the get-go, like it's unfavorable for us. Always, any trade like this, I consider unfavorable, unless you have justification, right? And yes, there are many positions where it's justified, absolutely. Like, for instance, take, for example, like e4, e5, d4, d6, d5, d5. So we gave up our advantage in the center, but we took on d8, he took with the king. And then you can say, well, I did this because he cannot castle now. I mean, we can discuss this. Is it worth it? But at least there is the justification. Now, in this case, guys, there is literally a positional rule. Once in this pawn structure, knight jumps to d2. So in most of the cases, guys, it's actually can be black pawn structure, like knight to d7, right? So if you're like reversed, right? Like usually black has this pawn structure. It's very strange that like there is some kind of space advantage for black, right? I mean, usually it's opposite, right? You take on d4 because now knight on d2 is somewhat misplaced and cannot go to c3. So you take here, right? You take here, and knight cannot go here. Until knight on b5, on b1, it's unfavorable trade like it is. Like I said, default settings, like initial settings, it's unfavorable. But when you say, oh, well, I traded because now knight on d2 is misplaced, and we potentially can develop the play along the c file, it's okay. So always remember this pawn structure, so kind of like what we can call, it's kind of Carlsbad pawn structure, right? Some way, d4, c3, b2, Carlsbad pawn structure. Knight jumps, we can take. You can see the theory, you can pay attention to this rule, and you will see it's happening a lot. Now, so what's the best idea? Take queen b6 tempo. Pawn is attacked, right? Let's say he plays e3, something like that, and we develop our queenside play, rook c8, knight b4, whatever, a5, so, right? Maybe even this rook, and maybe we'll have a5 later. Fantastic play, right? Now, on the other hand, what is the difference? What is the difference? He played queen b6. Couple of things. Now, couple of things. His opponent played queen b3, but I don't think it's the best move. Number one, e4 was possible. And now, guys, it's a little bit different story. Now, if we would take, so that's actually could be a very nice justification as well. We take like this. He plays e4. I think like we just take on d4. He cannot do this, right? It's just a pawn. Now, what is the difference here? Like why it's not the same? Because we take intermediate move 1, intermediate move 2. Yeah, guys. And I mean, you can do this if you want, like, otherwise I take with the queen, right? I like, there is no isolate pawn at all. If you do this, there is this isolate pawn which is fully compensated because bishop on g2 is very powerful. Knight e3 can be played. White is not worse. This is one, guys. And the second thing, there is move e3, and then after cd4, ed4. So we're not gonna take anymore. So it's not the same effect. So even from this perspective, like not only knight d2, right, but also that once we play cd4, we clarify the pawn structure. It's one pawn structure. We don't play, he has choices of free pawn structure. It's up to him to decide. He can play e4, like we decided, like he can stay like this, or he can play e3 and then cd4, ed4. You see? So there is a logic here, like not to allow choice to your opponent. Now, he played queen b3. Black to move. So again, we are facing a big choice. We can do whatever we want. Guys, what do you think would be the best? Black to move. Somebody send like dc5. Okay, so much choice, right? Like we can take, we can stay, we can play c4. Like there is a lot of choice, right, guys? So the best idea in this position, and it's to take like this. It's to take like this. That actually was played in the game, and we will we'll move forward. Now taking on b3, nothing special. I can even, to be honest, like, well, probably a knight, but I can take with the pawn, right? But once again, guys, it's pretty favorable trade before like white goes like, you know, dc5, e4 maybe. Now this would be a mistake, right? Like I don't think it's a good idea. He moves the queen, gets e4, fantastic position. Now cd4, very interesting. So what happened here? cd4 forces queen b6. Now, guys, imagine this pawn structure. We need to understand that, like everyone knows basically, that in this position, queen b6, a b6 is fine. It's a compact, like he cannot get to our pawns. But now those pawns are like a little bit isolated. But actually, again, he cannot get to these pawns. He cannot really get to the pawns. Meanwhile, we open the file for our rook, and we can actually advance these pawns like b5, b4, right? Potential. So knight takes d4. Yeah, there is a similarity from London, this queen b3, queen b6 stuff. Black to move. Oh my gosh, what a move. Wow. Very original, Srunivas. Devi Prasad. Yeah, I saw your answer. Bongo. Okay, good point. Good point. Okay, guys. I mean, well, there have been a lot of answers. Like everyone is answering. Guys, it's a good idea in this position once again to take on d4. Guys, once again to take on d4. That's the best. cd4 to play bishop d7. Julian also mentioned. And now we have a few ideas. We have number one, c5. There are questions how he deals with c5. Also, there is another idea. We can start advancing and maybe doubling on a5. So there is a plenty of play for us, right? Like here on the queen side, very rich position with ideas. At the same time, white is very passive. And knight, guys, knight is so missing on c3, right? Now, now he played e5 in the game, guys. This move was very popular among answers, probably like equal to knight takes d4. But guys, here's the point. Like you play this move e5, you need to take into consideration that it's now different center, right? Look, and also you should consider the best moves for black, for white. I'm sorry, for your opponent. If you say like e5, knight c6, bc6, fantastic, I improve my pawn structure. This is one thing. But if you like, okay, what happens if he plays knight b5? Am I happy here? Am I happy with the pawn structure? Right? So I'm not saying it's very bad or something, but it's not great, right? So that's very important point. And now a better idea would be like maybe not to touch, but you know, knight d4 is absolutely the best. Like maybe better idea not to take, but you know, he can develop just like knight b3. He can play knight b3 and so on. You know. So absolutely the best knight d4, right? Absolutely the best knight d4, and that's it. Now e5, knight b5. Black to move. What to do? So interesting move so far. I have been offered. So interesting. The top choice is very surprising, I would say. The top choice is very surprising here in this position. Okay, guys, we talked about well, I'm happy that, like, you know, at least the move that was played in the game was not suggested here. Oh my gosh, guys, like rook a5, like top choice, guys. But you understand that, like, I'll play a4, right? Like somebody suggested like knight c, actually knight c7, bishop d6 before is there, but I think like I play a4. So if somebody mentioned he doubles, I'm not sure he doubles, because guys, after bishop d7, I have knight b3 coming, and there will be knight c7 always. And what is the problem, guys? The problem is, well, first of all, there is knight c7 from what I see, right? Knight c7 coming. And secondly, I'm about to play bishop e3 also to hit b6. We said b6 is not weak, but it's not weak. Maybe knight d4, cd4. I mean, it's weak, but there is no way to attack this, right? I don't like it, right? Like any square you go like knight c7 first of all, then bishop e3 is there as well. Now, what else was suggested? There was move bishop f5, not bad. Somebody like I think guys, like the best move is just to play rook d8 and keep the pawn structure as it is, and have the rook protecting the pawn on d5. Now, Julem, I remember you suggested bishop e6. I mean, it's actually an interesting question. My problem with that, so you basically offer another pawn structure transformation that in many cases actually can be okay, right? It's kind of like well known for Tarrasch, different pawn structures. Like I don't know where you go with the rook. Let's say here, right? Let's put it this way. But so the problem, it's like strange pawn structure, but actually like it's not too bad because we kind of like keep eye on this. My problem, I'm afraid there is potentially this move here. I'm afraid so that I can put this and then potentially target. I think it's dangerous. I think it's dangerous pawn structure. And of course, like there will be bishop pair. I don't see, like, I don't think we have time for counterplay. Bishop c5, I'll play knight b3. I don't think there is a tactics in the endgame. So I feel like white is better. Yeah, it's like, you know, if you get like this and then you play e4, it's awesome, right? And then you are able to get e4. That's also pawn structure, actually. But unfortunately not. Unfortunately not. Okay, guys. Now he played e4. He's like, oh well, d5 is weak. e4. Well, guys, what do you think? What's the problem with this? c4. c4 is complicated because, guys, again, like, could be nice move. But remember, there are squares to consider. I immediately, for me, the very first second I see this move, it's just like, this is how I trade. This is Grandmaster, right? I mean, like with experience, like immediately. What about knight e4? I mean, in general, good idea. Yeah, undermine the pawn structure, win e4, fantastic. But tactically, right? Now d4 square, that's correct. Knight b3, Laksh, I don't know, complicated name, guys. It's just this. Like you don't need knight f1. You can do knight b3. Why knight f1, right? Knight b3, d4 square. So he played bishop e6. He played bishop e6 in this position, and guys, that will be our last question for today. Let me flip the board for white. What do you do? So guys, if you analyze, let's say, if you want to talk about move bishop e3, I play knight d7. Right? Just that you know. You can continue. Cavalier to c7. I like this. Guys, please give me the line. Okay, let's say you play knight c7, I go rook somewhere. What next? No, that was funny. I mean, I understand. So bishop e3, knight c7. So guys, bishop e3, knight d7, what next? Knight c7, rook c8, what next? Okay. So that's a Lakshmi. That's pretty. That's a full answer. Yes, Renivas, but that's not so bad. That's not so bad deal for black. This kind of central. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very interesting, guys. A lot of answers here. Mainly focused, from what I noticed, on free moves. Knight c7, bishop e3, and f3 right away. So what David Prasad, like, you play bishop e3 twice. Bishop e3, then bishop e3 again. So like, but I understand. Okay, you get free moves. That's good to know, guys. So this is what's actually what played in the game: knight c7, rook c8, knight e6, f6. Guys, remember, we discussed this pawn structure. That's not a bad deal for black. Because, yeah, white has bishop pair, but we have nice pawns against bishop pair. And I noticed some guys relied on bishop h3, but king f7. And it's maybe a little bit better for white, yes, but I mean, nothing special. Nothing special, right? Now, there was suggestion f3. There was suggestion f3, right? Then in this case, I don't take. Right? I can play something. Now, what exactly? I don't know. Maybe rook a4. Maybe some move like rook a4. Now, guys, there is a way to combine all the ideas, all three ideas together. This is what very nice about this position. Guys, we start with bishop e3, targeting the pawn. There is no rook a6, we play 97, and then we play f3. And now what is important, there is no f5, because then knight c7. Right? There is no f5. Then it's just good timing, right? Winning on the spot. So, oh, guys, 1 second. What happened with my computer? 1 second. Knight c7. So that means black is forced to take. And that's not only isolated pawn in bad version, also like we can really feel this pawn structure. What happened with pawn structure, which potentially was like very nice for black at some point? What is now total collapse, right? And I'm not saying it's absolutely winning, but it's very, very, very solid positional advantage for white. And guys, this is how potentially it could turn from, like, remember, we could take on d4, play queen b6 with better chances. Now 3-4 moves, and that's already clearly better for white. Why? And well, you know, guys. So there was one tournament. He sent me these 2 games. So it was immediately like I indicated the problem. So he's like very careless with the pawn moves, like pawn structure wise, and so on. So you see. So always, guys, what I hopefully this lecture will encourage you, it's like paying more attention to nuances, right? You just move the pawn. Oh, it's not a big deal, but maybe it's backward, c3, backward, c4 pawn. You cannot handle later. So like extra ideas. The same obviously applies to opponent's moves. Like you will pay more attention to weak squares and so on. And guys, I hope it was helpful. You enjoyed. And now probably we have time. Alexandra, we can take a few questions, right?
Yes, there are a few questions from you. First one is, according to you, what type of chess players are better, dynamics or positional, and why?
Oh, well, guys, it's better to be a good player all around, right? Like why to have more weaknesses? It's like, believe me, these top guys, they know how to play any type of position, right? So it's positional, dynamic, but it's also comes together, right? Like it's you play positional when you feel the momentum, you start attack, you start dynamic play, you sacrifice. It's all together, guys. This is the part of position play as well.
Okay. What kind of tournaments are ideal? 1 round per day, 2 rounds per day, or 3 rounds per day? In India, some tournaments are 3 rounds per day. Should I participate in such tournaments?
Yeah, well, 3 rounds, it's very interesting. Probably it's not like regular long time control, guys. But here it's very simple. Like when I used to play, I used to play 1 game per day. I don't know what do you say, Alexander, right? I mean, all my years when I played, only like maybe a couple of years they were like started like one day in the middle of the tournament double round. I came to US in 2014, and there is no tournament like there are like tournaments, but it usually double round, like weekend you have 3 rounds. Guys, it's the problem is like I would love to play 1 game per day, but the question if you can find, and there are like enough tournaments, because it's now like I think it's connected with the budgets, how many days they run, but it probably I assume you can. It depends on you. Like when I played, I felt I'm too old. My physical shape is not great, and that's why I was failing. Let's say in big tournaments when there are like 4 days double round, and I played long games, so it was tough for me. And then I said, okay, let me play weekends. Let me play weekends. At least it's double round, but it's 2 days, 2-3 days, right? So it's up to you. You adjust, right? I don't know if there is a possibility now to have like 1 game per day. Let's say in India, I don't know, but you have to be ready for double rounds, right? I don't know what is happening there, but like if you feel that double round it's hard for you from physical perspective, like you get tired, you don't have a stamina like to handle this. Also, this is like if you feel this way, it's the area to improve physical shape, a very important part of chess nowadays, right? That's why it's sport. Physical shape improve. You have to be ready for double round, because I'm feeling like well, very soon there will be the majority, that like 90% will be double round.
Okay, thanks. So what do you think about Grandmaster Dorfman?
Oh, that's a surprising question. I mean, he's considered he's considered to be very, very good coach, very experienced. He worked with Kasparov. He has a very like from what I heard, there is some unique system with his books and stuff. I don't like him as a person. we had a problem, but as a coach, there are like pretty much positive feedback, and but he's not like very like I would say popular, right? He's like it's like I know kind of like insider information, but he's not the guy that he's open and you can get to him like he's on social media. He's like old school guy, and he has a special system, and I know he helped a lot of players, and since he worked with Kasparov, I think he understands a little bit, so that's my opinion.
Okay. At times, I tend to exchange queens very early in the game. Is that right approach? And if not, what approach should I follow?
No, well, that's it depends on the position. Like if it's a problem, so fix it, right? Like maybe you like to play end games. Like it depends on the situation. There are situations when it's okay to trade. There are situations when it's not okay to trade. Maybe it's harmless. Maybe it's passive or something like this. I don't know. It depends. Like if you feel that's the problem, like try to fix. Try not to trade. Like that's a very simple. Very simple recipe, right, for you to improve.
And the last question for today is how to improve tactical vision in chess.
Well, how to improve tactical vision? It's usually I believe in a method which calls pattern recognition. So what does it mean? You solve puzzles, and once you solve like many puzzles, it's like, guys, like a muscle memory. So some kind of brain memory. You already, that is a position where skew can happen potentially. So maybe like I always like the idea, like there are so many sources now. You go Lead Chess, you go chess.com, Chess Tempo, put the puzzle, solve. Like you solve, you are successful. They kind of like increase the difficulty. But also you can find a bunch of like sources where you can set up like according to different topics, right? Like skew, deflection, I don't know, double check, discovery, and then like hit the topic like 100 puzzles on the same topic. And that's, once you solve so many, it's kind of like develops, like, as I said, as a muscle memory, right? Like you remember these ideas, and it increases the chances for you to find a similar idea in the game. So this is how it works.
Okay, thank you, Boris. That was all of questions for today. Also, I would like to thank for our users for joining, and I hope that everyone will stay safe and take care till next time.
Thank you for moderator, and it was a pleasure as always. Thank you very much.